Good evening and welcome to what might be called the perfect phone call stage of the latest scandal involving the former president. You recall perfect phone call was the phrase the former president used to describe the call that got him impeached, the call in which he tried to strong-arm the president of Ukraine into helping him smear Joe Biden. He called it a perfect phone call after his supporters and enablers had made a slew of excuses about the call, none of which really held up. So the then president embraced the call and said it was perfect. That is where we've landed tonight. After 2 business weeks of unprecedented revelations since the FBI agents executed a lawful search warrant at Mar Largo and came away with 11 sets of documents the former president was not entitled to have, including 4 sets of highly classified material, the president's one-time attorney, Rudy Giuliani, has now made the perfect phone call excuse.
And now they want to make him responsible for having taken classified documents and preserved them. Really, if you look at the Espionage Act, it's not really about taking the documents. It's about destroying them, or hiding them, or giving them to the enemy.
Right.
It's not about taking them and putting them in a place that's roughly as safe as they were in the first place.
Taking classified documents, some mark top secret SCI for sensitive compartmented information, and keeping them intimate of a club, the treatment roughly as safe, quote, as keeping them in the National Archives or the West Wing, according to Rudy Giuliani. Or in the case of some of the material, a special sensitive compartmented information facility, or SCIF. Contrary to Mr. Giuliani's legal interpretation, the Espionage Act actually does refer specifically to willfully retaining documents and failing to deliver them on demand to the federal employee or officer entitled to receive them. Now, as we said, this perfect phone call excuse has come after an evolution of excuses made by the former president's supporters for having the file stashed at a country club. Here's his youngest son the evening after the search.
My father has worked so collaboratively with them for months. In fact, the lawyer that's been working on this was totally shocked because I had such an amazing relationship with these people, and all of a sudden, on no notice, they sent 20 cars and 30 agents.
Second youngest son. He's suggesting it came out of nowhere. What we subsequently learned is it may have come from the former president or his legal team acting in bad faith. One of his lawyers, as you know, signed a letter back in June saying no classified material remained at Mar Largo. Investigators subsequently found out this was untrue and sought a search warrant, which required probable cause of a crime to obtain. As for the search itself, the former president and his supporters painted the FBI as jackbooted thugs. Here's Florida Senator Rick Scott.
This should scare the living daylights out of American citizens. The way our federal government has gone, it's like what we thought about the Gestapo and people like that they just go after people.
Rick Scott, the U.S. Senator, former governor of Florida, comparing the FBI to the Gestapo. That was August 9th. By the 10th, supposedly responsible lawmakers were suggesting, with nothing to back it up, that the FBI had planted evidence.
Do I know that the boxes of material they took from Mar Largo, that they won't put things in those boxes to entrap him? How do we know that they're going to be honest with us about what's actually in the boxes? How do we know that was in the box before it left the residence?
What's in the box? The former president got in on this one as well, and by a week's end, the man was dead after trying to storm the FBI field office in Cincinnati. By that time, though, we had seen the search warrant and the alleged crimes it was predicated on. We also saw the inventory of what was taken. So, for a while, the argument was there was no classified documents left at Mar Largo. It became that those 11 sets of classified documents actually weren't really classified at all.
This is from President Trump's office. It just came in a few minutes ago. As we can all relate to, everyone ends up having to bring home their work from time to time. He had a standing order. There's the word I've been looking for. That documents removed from the Oval Office and taken to the residence were deemed to be declassified the moment he removed them.
Where did they find these people? That wouldn't fail the laugh test, as well as a subsequent CNN fact check in which 18 former high-ranking officials confirmed the notion was ridiculous. But if one excuse isn't working, there's always another. In this case, what about Obama?
Donald Trump tweeted that President Barack Hussein Obama, this is his tweet, not my words, kept 33 million pages of documents, much of them classified. How many of them pertain to nuclear? Word is lots.
Word is lots. Truth is none. The National Archives almost immediately put out a rebuttal of all of it. So, fine, whatever. There was then, of course, another excuse. The former president was just too busy trying to stay in office to keep an eye on the movers. quoting now from the Wall Street Journal, quote, "If you only start packing with 2 days left to go, you're just running low on time," a former aide said. And if he's the one just throwing things in boxes, who knows what could happen? The President of the United States is just throwing things in boxes, or as Rudy Giuliani might put it, taking them to a better place. Perspective now from Dan Goldman, who served as Democratic counsel in the first impeachment of the so-called perfect phone call. He's currently running for Congress in New York's 10th District. Also with us, Tom Blanton, director of George Washington University's National Security Archive, which we should point out is a non-governmental institute. Daniel, I mean, the comments from Rudy Giuliani, is there any chance this idea that, the basement at Mar Largo is just as good as the National Archives or the West Wing would hold up in court?
No, of course not. These documents need to be kept in a SCIF. Now, the National Archives has a SCIF, the West Wing has a SCIF. I worked in the House Intelligence Committee, which is a SCIF in and of itself. It is possible if the basement of Mar Largo is a SCIF that they could be kept there. But there are so many things that are wrong with Giuliani said. First of all, the way he describes the Espionage Act is incorrect. But even under his description, Donald Trump did hide these documents. They were subpoenaed and they were not turned over.
So we don't know why he hid them, but he hid them.
Right, we know that he hid them. That's why they had to do a search warrant after requesting a subpoena. So no, it is not roughly the same as being in the archives or the West Wing. There are incredibly detailed, sophisticated, and regimented protocols. If you transfer classified information from one location to another, there's a special pouch that has a key that you have to put the documents in when you go from one place to another. This is not a situation where, we'll just throw it in a basement.
So even how the documents themselves are transported matters?
Yes, yes.
Tom, CNN is reporting current White House officials are seriously concerned that the material at Mar Largo might potentially jeopardize U.S. sources or methods for intelligence gathering. How dangerous would it be to have documents like that laying around the basement of Mar Largo in a storeroom that apparently did not even have a padlock originally on it?
That's right. When the Justice Department visited on June 3rd, allegations of continued classified information in there, they saw no lock on the storage closet. It was only put on June the 8th. But this is a slow motion scandal that really started more than a year ago when the National Archives checked all the stuff they had been getting from the White House at the end of the Trump administration. And they couldn't find the love letters from Kim Jong-un. And they couldn't find that map of Hurricane Dorian that President Trump had written on with a Sharpie. And these are famous documents, been talked about, covered on CNN and everywhere else. And they weren't in what the National Archives had received. And so National Archives reached out to former White House counsel for Trump and to Trump's lawyers to say, where's the stuff? Where are the love letters? And over months, there were discussions about, wait a second, you guys have boxes at Mar Largo. I mean, my own group, National Security Archive, we were in court against Trump during the transition, got a litigation hold. Government lawyers said to Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, yes, we've got a hold and everybody at the White House knows about it. Apparently the president didn't. We were worried about a bonfire in the Rose Garden. Turns out we should have been worried about a U-Haul outside the back. National Archives went after these boxes, and finally in January, so 8 months after they first inquired, they get 15 boxes back from Mar Largo. And they're stunned. There's classified information in there. And they begin to, the wheels begin to turn. February, they reach out again and say, wait a second, they ask the Justice Department to investigate. Finally, by June 3rd, Justice serves a subpoena on Mar Largo and gets their first visual look at that storage unit in the basement. It doesn't even have a lock.
One of the remarkable things, you mentioned the Kim Jong-un love letters. Maggie Haberman's reporting, Dan, from the New York Times, she talked about those letters as the former president liked to keep in his office to show off as tchotchkes, just like he used to show off Shaquille O'Neal's ginormous shoe in his office in Trump Tower, and he just likes to sort of keep these tchotchkes. If that becomes the excuse that these are just things he wanted to keep, he viewed them as his, is that any kind of a justification? I mean, that's not an excuse.
No, look, these classified documents have very clear markings on them. The love letters from Kim Jong-un are probably not marked as classified, but this is apples and oranges here. These tchotchkes are one thing. Nuclear secrets are something totally different.
They're not his nuclear secrets, they're the country's.
Of course, and I mean, frankly, under the Presidential Records Act, pretty much nothing is his personally. It belongs to the Office of the Presidency, most of it. That's why the archives expects to get it. But this is no surprise, because we know from Maggie Haberman's reporting as well that we saw documents that were flushed down the toilet. They did not observe the Presidential Records Act at all. And to me, this is likely criminal, what has happened at Mar Largo, and you have to wonder, why was he hiding these documents even when they were requested? But you also have to wonder, with someone who you cannot trust like Donald Trump, what else is there? What else is he hiding? What else is he doing? What else did he flush down the toilet?
Yeah. At which point, we don't know if it's nuclear secrets. We don't know the exact nature of what the documents are.
Reportedly.
Tom, is there a limit to what a president can declassify? I mean, or are some documents just so sensitive that even if the former president did have some sort of standing order to declassify everything going to Mar Largo, which, as we know, is disputed by just about every former administration official we've been talking to, would there be exceptions to that?
Anderson, you're right on point. There are statutes that govern nuclear information, like Dan's saying. There's statutes, laws that govern sources and methods of intelligence information. Presidents have a lot of authority to declassify, and I have to say, I'm a big fan of the Harry Potter approach to declassification, that you wave a wand over a big batch, a big pile of documents, given how much the government overclassifies and the mountain of historic secrets. But that kind of declassification in the Chamber of Secrets should only happen once you've sampled for nuclear and for sources and methods, because the president does not have unilateral authority to override those laws.
Yeah, Tom Blanton, I appreciate it. Dana, thanks very much as well. We're now with the FBI.